Psychology to neuroscience shows that there is an advantage to wearing dark colors to work. So today I want to talk about your dark color advantage and how wearing black or navy could be the secret to building your credibility. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. If you follow this channel on YouTube, or if we have crossed paths in person, you can probably guess what my signature favorite color to wear is. But as much as I love to wear black, I've certainly gone through periods where I felt like I needed to be embracing more color and wearing more color, particularly at work. But now that I've fully embraced just the power of black and how much I love it for its timelessness and for its versatility, I've also started to learn a lot more about the psychology behind black. And this is something that I've always understood to a degree because of my experience in marketing and in branding and communications. But more recently, I've learned more about the impact that wearing black can have in a professional context as well, and why this can be a really silent but powerful way for you to be able to build your credibility. So first off, let's talk about the cultural conditioning of dark colors. In our current world of fast fashion or clothes, no matter what the brand, are available in a click of a button, it is really hard to remind yourself that this wasn't always the case. And when it comes to black and dark clothes in particular, in say the Middle Ages time, for example, this was actually quite a status symbol. And that is because of the process involved in dyeing clothes to be a dark color. So a rich black, for example, would involve many layers of dyeing. And so this was something that would then be mostly reserved for the more prestigious groups during that time. For example, you might see darker colors being worn by European aristocrats, or you might see it being worn by judges or priests or scholars. Particularly in those contexts, it was a display of authority, wisdom, and competence, and also a show of impartiality. So whether we were a part of those eras or not, we have been evolutionarily hardwired to have a certain conditioning when it comes to seeing dark colors. So because of what our ancestors experienced in seeing dark colors, we associate colors like black, for example, with formality, with competence, with power. So if you are choosing to wear those colors to work, then you are tapping into that cultural conditioning that already exists in human society. And this can also apply to navy. So for example, navy was something that the Navy started to wear. It was something that was adopted by the police force and by security in general. And navy can be a really nice alternative to black, particularly for people that would maybe be wearing a really harsh black suit, which can come across as a little bit more imposing in a modern day corporate context. Navy is a really nice alternative to this, while still tapping into all of that cultural conditioning when it comes to a dark color advantage. And this cultural conditioning leads nicely into point number 2, which is the psychology of authority. So the psychology research that has been done in the color space shows that black, for example, has been associated with perceptions of power, of formality, and of authority, as I mentioned earlier. So when you do wear these clothes, you are tapping into those perceptions that psychology has shown exist to be associated with that particular color. And it has also shown that navy is associated with trust, with dependability, and with conservatism. And this is why you often see this color used across so many brands, because it is a real cue to be able to build trust with a community or with an audience. And you can contrast this with research relating to pastel colors, which shows that pastel colors communicate an openness and a level of passivity compared to its dark color counterparts. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Everyone wants to seem open and approachable, but it's only when you consider the traits associated with leadership that you might like to take this into account more as well. While passivity or openness and lots of approachability might be something that your pastels can communicate well for you, it may not necessarily be the traits that people are looking for in a leader. So remember that when you walk into a room wearing dark colors or pastel colors, that you are tapping into thousands of years of deep-seated cultural conditioning and the psychology of color. Number 3, let's talk about the neuroscience of how our brain reacts to dark colors. When we see dark colors, this triggers the emotional center in our brain, and that is because of that cultural conditioning, because of that color psychology that we talked about, that we associate dark colors with. Because we associate it with formality and authority, it triggers that component of our brain. So it creates in us a reaction that we need to be more alert. And we can use that to our advantage, because if you are the one that is wearing the darker color, then it means that in the people that you are communicating with, you are triggering an alertness that is very subconscious. And this is something that is going to help you to communicate with more impact. If the people that you are communicating with are paying more attention to begin with, then you are set up to have the ability to have your message resonate more deeply with them. And this relates to something called the ecological valence theory, which says that our perceptions of color are formed by repeated exposure, emotions, and experiences with those colors. So because we have had repeated exposure to black or navy in certain scenarios, then we have been encoded to positively associate dark colors with high stakes situations. So if you want to be taken more seriously in your role, consider if the secret lies in your dark color advantage. And number 4, don't forget about the power of enclothed cognition, which is something that I have talked about on this channel before. This is about the power of the symbolic meaning of clothing and how this can actually affect your performance. So if you do start to wear darker colors, for example, believing that it will have an impact on your competence and on your confidence, then because you associate the symbolic meaning of particular clothing with a particular thing, then it is going to, by default, also have some sort of an influence on the performance that you execute as well. There has been research that shows that the symbolic meaning of clothing can impact your performance. Remember that when it comes to your personal brand, you don't have to look loud to lead. You can lead with the quiet confidence of wearing your dark color advantage. Thanks so much. For more on personal branding, subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.